She
You heard
got some
about any
cheer
plans,
palms, and she
what
was
they
showing
might
me the
intend
ninja
to
chair.
do
I never
down?
knew
What,
you
are
could
they gonna
combine
leave
ninja
it?
moves with cheering.
Or they're gonna try to
And we had the
repave it to
robot
get
chair and the
more-
snake chair. This
Pretty
is pretty
cute.
great, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe south of,
Some dance moves mixed in.
south of 11th Street?
Yeah,
No, they'll never pay
Cute
that.
age.
good.
Yeah, great
Because
fun.
they have those
Wait
ditches
another
that
10
are along
years.
each side of it,
Yeah.
that usually have a lot of water in it.
You'd like to go back, I mean,
Anyway,
because
That
it'd
used
be
to be, it
bad.
used to be a,
Yeah.
it's
I
a
need
road, but it was
keys.
a huge.
Yeah, well,
I got my license now.
Problem, yeah,
She's
because
daddy's
it-
girl right now.
Yeah.
well, high water table.
And my other two boys, my fifth graders goes to the skate park over here.
They don't need
He's
it now. It's good, good. Yeah.
Just got back from the track meet over at East.
So it's neat.
I
Well,
dropped him
you
off.
going
Yeah,
there
I just
because
dropped
are
him
you
off.
kind
And
helping
he
with-
wouldn't wear, he had to be in shorts and a thin shirt.
Cool.
Dad, I'm going to be exercising. I'm fine. No, I'm not going to be cold. Took him about 5 minutes and he's like,
How old is he?
I was cold.
What are the chances, do you
Well,
think, of them
he's
building
11 going on 30.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
They want that so that they're used,
And
they
my
wanted
other
to have a
one
grand
is
entrance to the pavilion.
14, so.
But a lot of people fought
gotta
that
watch
because it was
Jason
a
go?
diminishment
Nice
of
family.
14 going on
parkland.
15?
And
Just
so-
disappeared, huh?
He's not quite as annoying, not now that he's through the other age, but
Good,
we're
how
the
are you?
most
Well,
strict
it
parents
wasn't in the
that
plan
ever existed.
bad.
All the friends can do everything.
6 o'clock.
Jason's gonna
Anyways.
have to get something in his car.
We
over
guys
It's
join
fun.
me in a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'm going to call the meeting of the Grand Traverse County Parks and Recreation Commission for April to order. And we have Janine, which last name, Janine?
Janine Hare.
Hare?
Hare, like-
Hare, Janine Hare. If you would please call the roll.
Sure. Peter Doran,
Here?
Carl Brown, Bob Karstens.
Here.
Bill Dorier,
Here.
David Grahams.
Here.
Rodetta Heron,
Present?
Rebecca Cass, Chris Maxbauer, Kevin McAlee,
Here.
Scott Robertson.
Here. We have a quorum, and that's McKellier.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
The first public comment. Anybody like to speak during the first public comment? Sir? No? Okay, we'll go on to the additions to the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda? Jason?
No additions to the agenda today.
Okay, then why don't we go to, I've got the wrong agenda, the wrong packet.
Here you go.
Thanks very much. Why don't we go to Ben and the special order, thanks. Bob, I appreciate it. I grabbed the February packet. Go to Ben, and he's going to give us an update on the Boardman River Dam removal. And Ben is from the Conservation District.
Yeah, well, here, Jason, do you press the power button to get it out of?
Yes. Yep. That's a full packet.
Oh, thanks very much.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. I thought I'd start off with a little bit about the Conservation District for the benefit of some of the new members here. So I'll just breeze through some of our program areas, and then we'll talk a little bit about the Boardman River Dam's removal process. So right off the bat here, our mission at the Conservation District is to inspire exploration, appreciation, and conservation of our natural world. We were established in 1941 primarily to help farmers prevent soil erosion during the Dust Bowl days, and changed quite a bit since then to meet the changing needs of the community. We function very much like a nonprofit. We get no funding from the state of Michigan for our general operations. Our funding comes from public and private grant sources, private donations, and things like fee-for-service and contractual obligations.
Ben, would you mind? Yes, push those in. Thank you.
Sure. Looks like I lost a little bit of my formatting with different version of the PowerPoint here. I apologize for that. So we do that through 4 pillars, if you will. And those are restoring the Boardman River watershed, promoting sustainable local agriculture, providing gateways to the natural world, so that's parkland programs and invasive species and things like that, and training the next generation of conservation leaders through our education programs. Boardman River program has been going on for almost 20 years now. We've restored over 200 erosion sites on the river to date. We're a player in the Boardman River Dams project. We help local municipalities with land use planning in the watershed and work to provide recreational access to the river. If anybody has any questions along the way, please stop me. Water stewardship program. This is our main program that we still work with a lot of agricultural producers in the area. We help them achieve meat verification, which is a state environmental assessment and quality verification program. We do abandoned well closures, pesticide storage, disposal, household hazardous waste cleanup, drinking water screening, emergency planning, and soil testing. Has anybody seen these sites, these signs rather, at different farms around the county? That's great. So what that sign means, if they have that, is that they are following up-to-date current best management practices when it comes to environmental practices on their farm. And I'm not sure of this anymore, but it's really kind of a testament to our local growers, and Dan Busby, who runs this program for us. In his 4-county service area, we had more meat verifications than the rest of the state combined. So it's a really successful program, and they're continuing to expand it.
Excuse me, Ben, that last statement regarding soil testing, do you do that at the Boardman Nature Center? I know MSU Extension was providing that over on Front Street, so where do our citizens go for soil testing?
Either or, and both of those testings go down to East Lansing to be tested at Michigan State University. So it's the same program, we're just an outlet for those test kits.
Great, either location, thank you.
We also have environmental education programs, and of course the one that you're probably most familiar with is the Boardman River Nature Center. Just some of the facts about that there. You can't see it, but we're averaging about 10,000 visitors a year, and this will be our 4th year that we're open. So we're pretty excited about that and hope to grow that in the future.
Is attendance going up, or does it stay pretty constant?
It's been going up slowly. The Parkland program, this is the providing gateways to the natural world, trying to give people access to some of the high-quality natural areas of our region that keep our quality of life so high.
Ben, do you do the signs for or arrange for the signs for the different parks? Predominantly the trails?
Yes.
Because I noticed that Garfield's signs look like they're right out of the same book as the Nature Education Reserve signs.
The signs that are in the kiosks at the trailheads?
Yep.
Yeah. So those are rotating for the most part, the ones that aren't specific maps to that project. And we have 30 different posters that we rotate through all of our different trailheads to keep the information fresh and appealing to users. So they're in the same color palette and things like that.
Okay. But you do the maps for the county parks and the maps for Garfield. Do you do them for Peninsula and Acme and?
So our 3 major customers, if you will, for the Parkland program are Grand Traverse County, Garfield Township, and the City of Traverse City. So those 3. So Brown Bridge, quiet area for the city, the NER for the county, and then there's 5 different parks for Garfield Township that we do the signs for.
They only do that, just to clarify, they only do that for the parks they manage. So they don't manage all of our parks for us. So it's just at the ones that they manage on behalf of each individual.
So you manage Garfield's parks as well as
Yes.
The counties?
Yep.
Good.
And these, well, again, I apologize for the formatting, but these are the parks that we manage. So there's 5 for Garfield, the National Education Reserve for the county and Brown Bridge Quiet Area for the city. And then I should also add Rotary. We manage their East Creek Reserve, Canterbury Woods property, which is out near Brown Bridge.
Who manages the commons?
We do.
Okay.
Garfield Township's portion of the commons.
Okay, all right.
Invasive Species Network, this is another on-the-ground program we have that's largely focused on the parklands that we manage, but it's a collaborative effort. We have 20 partners in this program over a 10-county area. Of course, invasive species don't respect jurisdictional boundaries, so it's really important to have a regional approach when it comes to managing these so we can maximize the effectiveness when we're spending funds. We have a seedling and native plant sale every year, and our seedling sale is coming up this weekend if anybody's interested. Lots of native trees and shrubs there, and I'm sure everybody's seen the red pine plantations that are all over the county, and almost all of those were bought through the Conservation District. That was historically one of our big programs, in addition to working with farmers there.
Ben, when, where will that be?
It's going to be at the Nature Center there, right on Cass Road, just south of South Airport.
You have some time, I'm sorry to be painful.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I think it's 9 to 3, Saturday and Sunday. All the details, including what species will be available and prices and things, are on our website if anybody's interested in that. Okay, and then we'll just move right into the dams process. A River Reborn is what is kind of their promoting this as. When I say they, I mean the implementation team and the marketing team and things like that. The project is to remove or modify 4 dams on the Boardman River: Brown Bridge, Boardman, Sabin, and Union Street Dam. The idea is to return the Boardman to a more natural, cold water, free-flowing river. It's the largest dam removal project in Michigan's history and the largest wetlands restoration in the Great Lakes Basin. So it's a large project, and it's long-term. So the IT, that stands for Implementation Team. These are the body that make the ultimate decisions on the dams, and you can see who there is. The column on the left, the IT, those are the voting members. Ex officio or other members that are present at the meetings and help contribute technical expertise. Any questions on that?
What's the purpose of the implementation team, or what's their scope of duties?
Sure. Their scope of duties is to manage the overall project, which is, let's say, the overall removal of the 3 dams on the Boardman River. Of course, the county is the owner of 2 dams, Boardman and Sabin, and the city is the owner of Brown Bridge Dam. And they realized that they didn't have the capacity to manage this project internally, so they agreed to have the implementation team take over management and to be the deciding body for the project.
Well, there's got to be, there should be, I'm sure there is, planned some replacement of facilities and some restoration of the land that is going to be exposed. I'd like to know what's going to happen to the road at Cass, and what's going to happen at Sabin. Does the implementation team go beyond the removal of the dams? Do they go, like I would like to see a pedestrian bridge at Sabin so the Nature Education Reserve could access both sides of the river?
Sure, absolutely. So we'll get into that in a little more detail in a minute here, but there are, I don't even know if I could list the number of agencies and different folks that are working on that and contractors. So there's, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, DEQ, DNR, Army Corps of Engineers, the list goes on, plus a bunch of regional environmental players and the Grand Traverse Band and things like that. So the IT is kind of coordinating all those pieces, and they're also working with several out-of-state and in-state contract or engineering firms to develop those plans that you're talking about there.
When do you see the Nature Education Reserve Board, Bob's a member of that, and when do you see the Parks and Recreation Commission getting involved in that planning process?
The NER board has been involved since the beginning.
Okay.
with different task groups, bottom land management task groups. Recently, Bob and the rest of the committee has been working on a recreation management plan for the NER, for the exposed bottomlands. And when we talk about it a little bit, we've got a year or two before we need to have plans in place. But our intent is to get the plans to this body so you can incorporate them into your strategic plan and master plan. Once they're in there, then it opens up the doors for a lot of funding, specifically Natural Resources Trust Fund grant funding.
Is this Recreation Commission just going to be given a plan from the NER, or are they going to be asked, do you want any changes to this plan?
Typically,
My goal is to present you with a plan and then ask for your changes,
Okay.
it should be a recommendation from the NER board or the NER advisory committee to our commission. They should present to us a draft plan for this commission's approval.
Okay.
Yep.
So if anybody's got ideas, like my idea is to make sure we got a pedestrian bridge of some sort, we ought to talk to Bob or Grace Rudd, or who else is on the NER, Bob?
Evan Smith, George Lombard.
Arlen Mattson.
Pardon?
Arlen Mattson,
Yes, Arlen Manson.
Jack Robbins, Carol Groves,
All right.
and
So
Kendra Campbell.
those are the contact people for the public too, but for us at this point, if we have ideas as to, or comments we'd like to make as to the upcoming plans. Okay.
And we do have a good set of background information to work with. For instance, there's some old documentation about the county's long-term vision and that Russ Clark had put together and things like that for that connector, the pedestrian connector there. So
Great.
it's absolutely something we're working at. So there's the location in the watershed of the dams. I can see Boardman and Sabin are real close together, about 2/3 of a mile apart. Brown Bridge is the farthest dam upstream, and that's the first one scheduled to be removed. These are just some of the environmental benefits of removing the dams. I'll read all those to you there. We anticipate a significant economic impact on the river as far as increased fishing opportunities and paddling opportunities. And it should promote tourism and business growth in the region and support the long-term goals of the Grand Vision. This touches on what I was mentioning before. It's a really huge process, and there's an awful lot of folks involved, and it's fairly unique in the country. So they've been real careful to document the process so it can be replicated in other communities, and they can kind of learn from the mistakes that we've made and so forth. It's been great for education programs. With all the change comes lots of opportunities to monitor those change before and after and things like that. So that's something that we've been very active in as well. So here's a timeline. It's been about 4 years with this implementation team and various working groups soliciting public input on the disposition of these dams. And it was very open, very well attended for the most part. And the decision was finally made by the county and the city to move forward with removing those dams. We began drawdown of Sabin and Brown Bridge Pond in last fall. And so both of those ponds are drawn down as far as they can be with the current status of the structures in place there. If we want to go any farther, we have to start making modifications to the dam. The permits to remove Brown Bridge Dam have been submitted to the appropriate agencies, and they're anticipating construction starting on that removal in early August. Late July, early August would be the soonest that could happen if there's no hang-ups with the permitting process. They'd like to have that powerhouse and that pond gone with the channel restored before next winter. So this fall, that's slated to happen out at Brown Bridge. Originally, Sabin was slated to happen at the same time.
Is there any plans to build a bridge across Brown Bridge?
I'm working with the advisory committee out there as well. They've recommended 3 bridges, actually. There's, that's a long shot. There's lots of hoops to jump through to do that because it's a state-designated wild and scenic river at that point. So that gives us some extra challenges, but yeah, we want to, there's an extensive trail system existing on either side of the park that's essentially cut in half by the river. So at least 2 bridges there could create that into a really nice loop trail and link up some.
It seems that at the time of this major disturbance to the ground and the environment, that would be, when the dams are removed, that would be the appropriate time to put a bridge in rather than come back 2 or 3 years later and then have to pour foundations and do all that work then.
Absolutely, especially since there's so much interest as far as funders and things go. I mean, you're absolutely right. Now is the time to do that.
All right.
I have a question.
Sure.
And you can make it brief. It's probably a complex question. When you talk in terms of restoring the river and the surrounding area, floodplain, I'm not sure. What's that involve? Is it really just letting the water go down to its natural state? It's going to form whatever path it wants to do, and are you doing plantings then of native grasses? Are you having to actually go in with a backhoe and move soil around? What's the process?
Sure. So the process, the IT hired engineers to make kind of a range of options there, from 100% active restoration, where everything is restored with backhoes and things like that, 100% passive, which we just take the dam out and let the river find its new course. They chose, for a variety of reasons, a blended approach where they're going to be doing some active restoration and channel recreation and some passive recreation where the river will find its own course. There are planting plans, invasive species plans. We're working on the recreation plan for the bottomlands, the exposed lands. So there's quite a bit of active restoration planned. As I was saying, Sabin Dam was slated to happen at the same time as Brown Bridge. That was delayed because the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service found sea lamprey that were able to get upstream of Union Street Dam. There were some problems with the stop logs and things at that structure, and they want to be really sure that they've got that problem fixed before they take out Sabin Dam, which is the next barrier for sea lamprey. So that's been pushed back a bit. It's slated for 2014 at the earliest is what the Fish and Wildlife Service is saying there. And remove Boardman Dam, that's the one with the Cass Road Bridge crossing. That project is going to be tightly connected to the road corridor there. And the Road Commission has received $3 million for the construction of that bridge that has to be spent in the next few years here. So that's going to kind of dictate that project as well. There's some of the major funders so far. I think I may have missed some slides there. I apologize for that. So Brown Bridge removal is estimated to cost $4.3 million. They've spent $675,000 to date doing some of the preliminary engineering work out there, and they've got about 3.9 to 4.4 million either committed or applied for in grants. Sabin removal is estimated to cost about $3 million, and they don't even really have numbers on Boardman yet because of all the unknowns with the road corridor there. They don't know exactly where the river is going to go, and they'll need to figure some more of those things out before they start coming up with estimates.
Ben, does dam removal entail removal of the large embankments that are like wings that spread out from the dam?
Mm-hmm. So at Brown Bridge, they're going to remove the powerhouse itself, the brick building. That's where the original river channel was, and that's where they're going to put the new channel. And they're going to do some grading on the earthen berms, which are the actual dams They're going to lower that ridge and contour it such that it looks a little more natural, but they're not going to remove the entire 1,300 feet of that berm.
On the Boardman impoundment, there's also a large either wall or embankment that kind of goes out to the west. Is that going to be taken out or contoured too?
I would imagine so, yeah. They don't have plans there yet that detailed, but yeah, the intent is to make it as natural as possible there.
Right.
So about a month ago, we had a public open house, a forum with all the contractors and different agencies present for the public to come and ask questions and get updates on the project. And these are some of the concerns that were heard out in the public, and these are all things that we're working to address through the various plans. Flooding, that was a big one for river property owners and the folks there at Logan's Landing. Sediment transport and deposition, there's concern that all the sediment that's built up behind the dams could move downstream and smother high-quality trout habitat and things like that. Channel erosion, restoration of the steep banks along Boardman Pond, restoration of the bottomlands, the Cass Road crossing and its ability to act as a greenway for animal passage and recreational trails. So this is a big subject that the NER Advisory Committee has been focused on for a number of years now, actually. The NER and the river is an important ecologic and recreational corridor. It's a major north-south corridor that leads right into the city. And what they'd really hate to see is kind of a pinch point, if you will, where people and animals would have to climb stairs and go over Cass Road and then go back down into the valley to continue on trails. So what they want to see as far as bridge design goes is either a span that's wide enough to accommodate both the river and wildlife and recreation on either side of the river, or a span that just accommodates the river with additional spans on either side that accommodate recreation and animals, wildlife. River access for paddlers and fishermen and safety during the drawdown and construction process are also big items out there now. Did you have a question, Bob? Okay. So Brown Bridge, the first dam to be removed, and you can see some of the statistics there. There's its location. It's the farthest one upstream, like I said, and that will have the most ecologic benefits, and that's why they chose to start with that dam. And these are historic pictures, and the one on the top has been really valuable because it gives us a good idea of where the original stream channel was, and you can kind of see that it crosses way over there at the south side of the existing pond. So we know that's where it once was, and that's where they're going to try and put it back. And these are just a series of shots. This is pre-drawdown, and you can see how much sediment is starting to back up and fill into the pond there. These are old shots from early 2000s. That's after about 1.5 foot drawdown. This is after an additional 5, almost 6 feet of drawdown, and you can see all that sediment that's been exposed there. You can see here that the river is not in its original path. You can tell because of all the stumps that are there. If it was in its original course, we wouldn't expect to see any tree stumps there. This is just one of the issues that we've been dealing with actively at Brown Bridge, and we can expect the same thing at Boardman and Sabin Ponds, is just forming river users that that the river is changing and there may be dangerous spots there. And we're working with the DNR right now to make a plan for Brown Bridge to potentially close the river to paddlers upstream of Brown Bridge during the construction process, just because there's a potential for some safety issues there. And I won't spend too much time on these, but these are all soil boring sites that the DEQ made us do to test for heavy metals and other contaminants in the Delta area. And most of this stuff I think we can assume that we'll have to do at the other two locations as well. There's just been a tremendous amount of engineering work here. These are some of the transects we've done with depth of refusal readings and other things to establish where that original channel was and where we want to build the new one. Just a picture of that.
What's the importance of putting the channel exactly where it was before?
That is where it will heal the quickest and require the least amount of restoration. So this is kind of hard to see, but those hashed areas are where we're planning to remove the spoils to, sediment deposition areas. So when we restore this section of stream bed, we're going to dredge out the channel and also the adjoining floodplain on either side of the river and deposit the sediment on site there. If we didn't do this, it would take decades or centuries for the river to cut down through all this sediment that has been deposited there over the past 90 years since the pond has been in place. So you can see there on the right side of the screen where those lines begin. That's the active portion of restoration. That's where they're actually going to dig a new channel and force the river to go into it. That's where the most sediment is. So by actively restoring this portion, we're going to minimize the amount of sediment that's taken downstream and that we would have to deal with later on.
How do you minimize the amount of sediment? I mean, when you're digging in a free-flowing stream, I would think all that sediment would get kicked up in just an incredible way, all go down. There's methods to keep that from...
Sure. The easiest way to do that is through a sand trap, which is just a deep hole dug in the river, and as the river is moving and transporting bed load sediment down, then it falls out. As the river slows, it drops into the hole there. This is, based on all that engineering data, this is the estimated course of the river once the pond is gone. It's hard to see, but the lighter blue ribbons up on the right side are where they're going to actually be constructing floodplain, and then the green areas are a steep slope remediation. So they're gonna try and prevent erosion on the steep slopes that they anticipate to be there when the water is drawn down. So this is kind of instructive. This is the type of real estate that we can expect under the water, and that to me is a good opportunity for recreational trails, possibly barrier-free trails, because as you can see, it's quite flat. The river tends to fall at a constant rate, and you wouldn't have the need for stairs or things like that prevent those with limited access from accessing the trail. So those are some of the things that Bob and I and the NER Advisory Committee have been working on for the recreation plans for Boardman and Sabin Bottomlands. These are just kind of to show that, and you guys know this from the drawdown at Boardman Pond, but it's going to look worse before it gets better. Just like any construction site, when you've got raw earth and machines and things moving around out there, it's going to look pretty rough for a while, but it shouldn't last too long, especially with all the planting and invasive species monitoring that we're going to be doing out there. And this was actually all underwater in 1961. This is the former Keystone impoundment that washed out in 1961. So this is 50 years on, but you can see that what was once looking like that, or worse probably, since that was a catastrophic dam failure. You know, this is the type of water we can expect post dam removal. So fast moving, a good clean gravel cobble habitat for trout, and just a beautiful stretch of river. It's the same stretch. So, in addition to all that really fine, detailed technical work that's going into the actual dam removal sites, at the same time, there's this Boardman River Watershed Prosperity Plan that's going on. And this is more of a grand vision type plan focused on the long-term sustainability of the Boardman River. And so you can kind of see the three areas that they're considering there: environment, economy, and community. And so some of the things that they're looking at is the recreational carrying capacity of the river. With no more dams on the river, we can expect a large increase in the use from liveries and things like that. And so what they're trying to do is put together plans and work with the DNR to establish just how many user days that river can support before it starts to degrade the ecological integrity of that river. Any questions?
I have one.
Sure.
Earlier, you mentioned that a section of the river is now or is going to be designated a state scenic river?
So, right now, from just north of Sabin Dam, all the way upstream is designated a natural river. It's a state designated natural river.
Natural river.
Within the Natural Rivers Act, there are different categories. So from Brown Bridge up, it's called wild and scenic. That's the most restrictive, the most natural river, if you will. From Brown Bridge down is called country scenic. So that's still a natural river. We still have to go through that permitting process, but the setbacks aren't quite as far, and there's greater opportunities for bridges and things like that.
Is any of that designating going to change? As these dams are all removed, is the natural area going to expand, or is it going to stay the way it is?
I would expect that it would stay the way it is. And I think largely that's due to upstream of Brown Bridge, there's an awful lot of state land that it flows through and it's undeveloped. You just think of all the houses and things along River Road and Beitner Road, and it's just not as wild or scenic, so that's why it's got that country scenic designation. I don't think that will change.
I know from my experience, there are federally designated wilderness waterways, and there are several different designations. Examples are the New River in West Virginia, the Allagash in Maine, Pine Creek in Pennsylvania. All of those are huge draws, and they're huge economic benefit to their communities.
Ours isn't a federal.
I know, the state.
But
I just
the
wonder.
tributaries, though, are included in the natural river designation.
Okay.
And so there's there's about 22 tributaries, I think.
This is exciting. I think it's great.
Well, thanks, Ben. If there's no other questions, we really appreciate it. It was very comprehensive, I think, and
Well, thank you.
the brief time that you had at it.
And you can expect, more detailed plans and proposals for Boardman and Sabin as we get closer, and there's fewer of those unknowns there.
Great.
Good, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, I guess we will move on then to the consent calendar. We have the budget reports, communication, the per diem report, the minutes of the March 15, minutes of the March 20. Are there any things you'd like removed from the consent calendar? If not, can I get a motion to
I would
approve
make
these
the
matters?
motion to approve this consent calendar as presented.
I support.
Okay, it's moved by Herron, supported by McKellier to approve the consent calendar. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries. Director's report. Jason?
All right, Commissioners, I've got a tremendous amount that's not on the agenda for my director's report, because we've had a lot of things that have come up just within the past week. So I'm going to go fairly quickly through it in an effort to get to some of our other items on the agenda. But if any of you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. And if I go too fast and skip over a place where you'd like to ask a question, feel free to interrupt. It's not too often I give carte blanche opportunity for you guys to interrupt me. So we'll start right off with my report, the items on the agenda. talk about, and I'm not going to touch on each item. The Parks and Recreation Network update. We had our last meeting last Thursday at 6 p.m., so at this time a week ago. The Parks and Recreation Network had it was a very very lively meeting. We didn't have a tremendous number of our user groups or recreation providers there, but the ones that were there had a tremendous amount to contribute. One of the things that the group kind of tasked me with was to determine whether or not it was a realistic goal or whether we had an opportunity to formalize the network, create maybe a chairperson, vice chair, secretary, and I discussed that with North Sky Nonprofit Network simply because North Sky helped create the Parks and Recreation Network. Deb McKeon and I kind of brainstormed the idea and found that it may not be the best idea to formalize that, because one of the strengths of the Parks and Recreation Network is the ever revolving cast of folks that show up to represent different organizations, and we're getting the best involvement that way right now. So, but it did lead into, without that formalized structure, how can the Parks and Recreation Network move forward? And we talked about strategic planning, but strategic planning without a board, it makes it a little challenging to hold organizations accountable. So what we discussed is we talked about possibly starting a pilot program to showcase some type of opportunity for different local units of government or different recreation program providers to work together that historically have not. I had some very rudimentary ideas, and I threw it out there as the leader of that group. I feel it's my obligation to throw out a few ideas and see what the group thought. My ideas were quickly shot down for a variety of different reasons, but out of that conversation, we discussed a good opportunity for developing a Parks and Recreation Expo, kind of a 3 or 4 day long celebration of parks and recreation opportunities in our community. The intent would be a focus one day maybe on youth leagues, where we would invite all of the youth league programs, youth sports programs out to do a registration or have different speakers maybe come out and talk, or have booth space, and we would host this here at the Civic Center. The next night maybe something along the lines of outdoor recreation, so Cherry Capital Cycling Club could be there, the hiking club could be there, the track club may be able to be there, and showcase some of the opportunities that we've had there. And that sounds like it may be an opportunity for the Parks and Recreation Network to move forward and showcase our ability to work together that otherwise wouldn't have existed had the network not been created. We had a brief presentation from Harry Burkholder talking about talking about Parks and Recreation authorities, and the Parks and Recreation Network did confirm that they would like to be the leading organization for promotion of Parks and Recreation Authority in the community. We talked heavily about the Clearinghouse website, the Hub website, and we got quotes from LIA to develop a website. It'd be about $5,000 to develop a website that would be very similar to what the US 23 corridor utilizes over on the east side of the state, showcasing all of the different entities, the local units that have parks or parks and recreation facilities, as well as opportunities for programs and different events that may be going on throughout those communities that are a part of that Parks and Recreation Network. So it was a very good meeting, and it gave us a kind of a springboard for next steps, and next steps are exploring that Parks and Recreation exhibition, as well as developing the Parks and Recreation Clearinghouse Network or website. So I was excited to have 3 of our commissioners at the meeting. Commissioners Robertson, Dorrier, and Karstens were all at the meeting, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts, because I've not had an opportunity to speak with any of you since that meeting.
Jason, I'd just like to say that, first, I think you should be congratulated for all the time and effort and work you've put in leading this movement. I think there's already been some very positive outcomes, not the least of which is the opportunity for us to meet face-to-face with folks whose paths we should be crossing more often and who we should get to know. And certainly for myself, someone new to the community, every single meeting we've had has been a learning experience for me in terms of some of the sources that are available there here in the community that I would not have known of otherwise. I think I can speak for most of the folks on the network that that leadership's been invaluable, and certainly I think everyone's very excited to see things move forward. In my mind, the creation of a hub website where we can all have our space and where people can come to learn that there's a single source for finding out information about any of our parks, recreation, either providers or sites or units of the government that can access those things, has unlimited positive possibilities. I think that's huge. I think also, though, at some point, my curiosity is that we've talked a lot within the network, and I think there's an extreme amount of support for a Parks and Recreation Authority, someone to continue to lead the same type of charge. And I guess my question for this group is, when and how is the best time for us in this group to consider that as a possibility, creating a Parks and Recreation Authority? So I think I'll leave that open question out there because I don't know the answer to it. Maybe somebody here does.
I may touch on that on some of the other things in my report today.
Okay.
I'd just like to say that I appreciated very much the presentation by Mr. Burkholder from the Land Information Access Association, and the way he pointed out the importance of parks and recreation and the programs that they provide in the area of placemaking, and how they've put the quality of the parks and recreation of many communities, have put them on the map in terms of quality places to live. And so I thought that impressed me. That part of it impressed me particularly. And thanks for your summation. I think it was excellent.
Thanks.
Bill, any comments?
No.
So unless there are questions related to that, I'm going to skip right down to the spring swim season update.
Jason, I wasn't there, so I almost hesitate to say anything, but just the one thought came to mind as you were describing a 3-day event. The thing that came to mind is, why wouldn't you combine them into one bigger event? I know as a citizen that uses the Parks and Rec, I would be more inclined to come to one big event as opposed to 3 smaller events. And maybe that was brought up anyways, but it came to mind.
It's a very, very valid point, and it's something that we're going to brainstorm. It has been discussed.
Yeah.
And I think the point was to be able to showcase, put more of an emphasis on different things, but it's certainly something that we've not written off within the network.
I'm just thinking if it's not, I'm going to put it kind of maybe not in the best way, but if it's not spectacular enough,
right,
you might not get many people that come, and it might seem like a bigger event. You might get more of a draw in total in one day as opposed to 3.
Sure.
That was my thought. Anyways, thank you.
Thank you.
I agree with you. In my inclination to attend would be better, just because from a time management perspective.
Okay.
Jason, can we go back to the capital improvements budgeting process?
Sure.
Is that a 1-year or a 6-year or a 20-year, or what sort of duration does the county look at a capital improvements plan?
The county doesn't have a capital improvements plan. This is something that I'm creating specifically for Parks and Recreation.
Okay, what was your thoughts on that?
I haven't gotten deep enough into the process to put a timeline on it, quite frankly.
This is just an open-ended wish list is what it looks like.
Right now, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Open-ended wish list to kind of give the commissioners an idea of what I'll be talking about, hopefully at our May meeting, about creating for our capital improvement budgeting process. This process was suggested to me for me to create to help out budgeting through the Parks and Recreation Fund and through the Parks and Recreation Department to help identify some larger funding priorities in order to justify that to the County Board of Commissioners. Other departments don't do this to this degree.
The county does have one, a capital improvement plan, though.
Right, and this is, you're right, and that's a 20,
I think
five-year,
it's a well.
they have a 5-year plan.
Right, every
and then-
5 years, and it's required by law that the county have one, and it's done by the planning commission, but it doesn't go into the detail that, or the detail that you might want it to have could be better provided by you, because to get his information, the planner would have to come to you anyway.
And this is specific to the Parks and Recreation
Right.
Fund, which,
Well, by law, any public improvement has got to be pursuant to a plan that's approved by the planning commission of that jurisdiction.
Right.
So technically, I mean, it's not always followed, but technically, anything that the county wants to do in Garfield Township has got to be approved by Garfield Township, and it's usually a 6-year capital improvement plan. And I think I would not want to call it a wish list so much as a prioritization of where we're going to go after the bucks to try to get this done. There's scarce resources, and we need to be thinking about what we want to do first, and what we want to do second, and what we want to do third.
Oh,
And
did I misunderstand? Are these prioritized?
no, they're not.
I didn't think so.
no, but the plan will be, won't they? I mean, won't the plan? Won't you have your plan have year 1 we're going to do this, year 2 year this, year 3 this?
Like I said,
This is just the initial stage.
this is the initial stage. These are ideas. I've not delved into that plan, and I'm not going to be able to report back till May.
Well, I'm not asking for it even in May, but I mean, what I think this group should have is a capital improvements plan, by next January or something, that says, these are the things that we'd like to, that we prioritize, that we think that are the most important, and that we should go after the money for.
In some degree, that prioritization takes place through a strategic plan, so you would think in some degree, your capital improvement plan prioritization would be kind of wedded to the strategic plan as well, and that process would inform that prioritization. Anyway, just my interpretation, but it may be wrong.
Okay. And in capital improvements, are we still on track for these Tier 1 improvements to be done by the end of October for the Civic Center?
The Tier 1, we should still be on track. Those are all should be within the scope of our facilities management department.
Okay, great. Please continue.
Next item, over the past month since we met last, probably 90% of my time has been spent on issues related specifically to the swimming pool and the change from our winter swim lessons to our spring swim lessons. So just to give you commissioners an idea, without our aquatic manager, my focus has been on the pool. It's stymied any progress with some of the strategic planning. It's stymied progress with some of the other plans and some of the other items like the Tier 1 improvements for the Civic Center Master Plan.
And I am getting increasingly frustrated with our having to do without an aquatics manager. I don't know what to do about it, but it's severely retarding the other serious projects that we've got. I think primarily the business plans that the County Board of Commissioners have been insisting upon. I mean, we don't have the staff, and frankly, I don't know what anybody can do about it.
Frankly, I think more so than anyone in here, I'm probably the most frustrated, and I'm the person that this impacts the most. And trust me when I say getting an aquatic manager back or getting an answer to this issue is my number one priority, because in freeing up the time that I should be spending being the director of the department versus the aquatic manager, I'm doing the best that I can, and I'm pushing our HR department as best that I can. Being a department of the county, we are bound by the policies associated with the HR department. I have to follow those, and at this point, this issue is entirely out of my hands. I don't think anybody understands the frustration more than me. Quite honestly, we will be going through I Monday received approval to hire a temporary executive assistant to help me, so I'm not stretched so thin. But even bringing on an executive assistant to help with some of the managerial issues, help with some of the day-to-day pool planning and things like that, it's going to take time for that person to get up to speed. So we're doing our best. And
I understand.
quite honestly, I understand this commission's frustrated, but I don't think anybody's more
Yeah,
frustrated than me.
And I'm not frustrated with you, I'm frustrated with the situation. Bill?
Never mind.
I know you don't want to go into, and it wouldn't be appropriate to go into real specifics, but do you predict any resolution in the near future, or is it still very, very murky?
It's still very, very murky.
Okay.
Any questions related to the pool? Oh, I didn't even get to the point that I was trying to make with the pool. That being said, spending 90% of my time, we were in the same, for some of the new commissioners, we were in the same boat last year at this time. Our aquatic manager was on medical leave. I think she departed April 20th, 2011. And in 2011, our spring swim session, which should be our busiest, we had 206 total swimmers, total students enrolled in our swim lesson program. And of that 206, we gave 58 refunds because of some of the challenges that were created when our aquatic manager left. I am happy to report that even though I'm spending 90% of my time dealing with pool-related issues, that so far, 3 weeks into the swim season, we are at 140 swimmers in our swim lesson program. We're not halfway through the session yet, so we're projected for our spring swim session to have higher enrollment, which should help out some of the revenues associated with the pool, and should help propel us to a better financial year in 2012 than in 2011. Keep in mind, that's a projection. We got 3/4 of the year to go.
Rodetta?
Well, first of all, I agree with Mr. Doran completely. Number two, I'm new on the board, and we've had this ongoing problem for 3 months. And it's not directed at you. I think you do a good job. I think maybe we need to support you a little more. But do we need to sign a petition or something to circulate it and send it to the county board or something to get this problem resolved? Because there's certainly more to Parks and Rec, and I'm new, than just that pool, and our director's spending 90% of his time there, and that's not fair to anyone, or us, as members of this board. And we have so many things that I know of that's in the fire that we need to be taken care of, and I'm new, and I'm not even up to date on what went on before January. I mean, I am, but I'm not, you know what I'm saying? So, just from what I know in the 3 months, we need to get this resolved, and if it takes all of us signing a thing and sending it in to them or something, whatever it takes, let's do something.
Bob?
I would agree with you that it would be really wonderful if we could do something, but it seems to me that we're under tremendous economic constraints, so that if the economic situation wasn't that bad, it wouldn't be that much of a problem, maybe to hire somebody to take her place temporarily. But that isn't a possibility right now. There's other people that are facing layoff. And so, anyway, or is there plenty of money for that type of thing, Jason?
I will talk to Mr. Inman and maybe try to get a lunch together with Kevin and Christine and myself and Larry, Inman and Fleece, like we did before. I'd ask you, each one of you, county taxpayers, call your favorite county commissioner and tell them they got to do something about this. We've got to get out of this jam.
I don't think it's inappropriate for me to say we're kind of stuck with the procedures.
It's legal, right? I mean, that's where
you're more than welcome to call and more than welcome to discuss this, and I would encourage that. But where this is caught is it's caught between the union agreement for the managers of the county. The managers are within Grand Traverse County, and I think there are 5 or 6 of them in this union. Their union contract allows for leave to be extended for either, I want to say 6 months. And the county essentially has to abide by that. So that's kind of where we're at. We're stuck in the 6-month time frame where the county has to allow cannot unjustly deny medical leave, and we're stuck in that 6-month window right now. So it's a union contract issue between the county and the ASME union. That's where we're at.
And our problem is both our problem and a problem for the employees who are members of that union. Because it's going to get to the point where we contract out the pool. Christine's going to dust off her RFP, and we're going to contract the thing out, because we just can't survive. Okay, let's move on. Meyer House update.
Just wanted to update the commission. The facilities management, they've opened bids and found a low bidder for the asbestos abatement in all of the county facilities. The first place they're going to start after the contract is approved by the County Board of Commissioners at the end of this month is the Meyer House. After the improvements, the asbestos is abated at the Meyer House. There are some improvements, including painting, carpeting, and a bathroom remodel. And after those improvements are done, we will enter into a approximately 3-year lease agreement, 3 years or greater, with the Conservation District for them to utilize the Meyer House as housing for interns or their seasonal workers. So this is a good opportunity both for us and the Conservation District because, if I said Land Conservancy, my apologies, the Conservation District, this is a good opportunity for both them and us. They're able to recruit stronger candidates from farther away, and we're able to realize a revenue from that piece of property. So just an update. That's something that you'll likely see that at our June meeting in regards to that contract. I'm working with North Sky Nonprofit Network to develop a statement of work associated with the strategic strategic plan. North Sky and I have kind of gone back and forth with some of the items within that statement of work, but I would anticipate being able to sign off on the statement of work and get moving with the strategic planning process, which is the next step, according to the commissioners that attended our last organizational capacity assessment meeting. And once I have additional information related to that, I'll update you as a commission.
Question?
Sure.
In this report, it says, at the last meeting held March 20th, the PRC elected to move forward. In the March 20th minutes, it's noted that a quorum was not present.
Correct.
Do we need to formalize this? I mean, I think we're all in agreement that's where we want to go. It's just, if you held a vote, I mean, it's a little unclear here. Was a vote held? I wasn't there.
There was no vote held. There was no vote held. Quorum was not.
Why don't we, how about it would be okay if the minutes today's minutes.
I'd like to make a motion, if you don't.
Okay, sure, Bill.
Yeah, for the Parks and Recreation Commission to move forward with strategic planning with North Sky Nonprofit Network.
Is there support?
I will.
Scott supports. Discussion.
What would be the status of the business plans? Does that mean the strategic planning trumps the business plans?
It does. It means the strategic plans would be done before the business plans.
Okay.
But it would having the strategic plan in place will strengthen those business plans.
We have a business plan here, I think, how many, I think at least 3 of the current members here, didn't participate in this. So I think the thinking was at that meeting at which there was no quorum, we probably ought to spend some time and make sure that this strategic plan accurately expresses the current Parks and Recreation Commission's wishes, and then get quickly. I want to quickly get into the business plans myself.
One final question, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, then. There was a number associated with the business plans to produce those. How much of the strategic planning will rob from the funding of the business planning? Any numbers to associate with that?
I never put concrete numbers associated with those business plans.
There was?
The grant was for $9,280. $3,000 of that was designated for the organizational capacity assessment. The way I wrote that grant, it gave this commission the opportunity to utilize the rest of that funding either for strategic planning and then going into business plans, which would decrease the amount associated or the amount allocated for the business plans. I've never put hard numbers to either of those with the creating that opportunity for the Parks and Recreation Commission to make a decision at
When
that
will we
time.
get a hard number on this strategic plan work?
I'm working with North Sky on that right now. I'm just waiting for their final answer.
All right. Any other questions? There's a motion on the floor. Prepared to vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I have 4 other items that aren't on my director's report. The first is fairly easy. And I'm just going to read a portion of a letter I received from Megan Olds at the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy and Julie Clark from Tart Trails. In December 2011, Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy and Tart Trails were awarded a grant from Grand Traverse Regional Community Foundation to develop an integrated action plan for the development and maintenance of trails, parks, and preserves managed by the two organizations along the US 31 corridor. The geographic area for this action plan includes jurisdictions of East Bay Charter Township, Acme Township, Elk Rapids Township, and the village of Elk Rapids. One of the key areas that's been identified there is obviously Maple Bay, and Harry Burkholder from LEA is actually doing the stakeholder analysis and would like to interview myself and 2 Parks and Recreation Commissioners about to identify the vision, to better understand how people are using the existing parks, trails, and preserves in Grand Traverse County, and to identify your vision for future infrastructure development. What I'd ask is that 2 commissioners that are available the morning of next Tuesday, April 24th, volunteer. Commissioner Karstens, you're more than welcome to volunteer, but keep in mind you will be asked to be a part of this through the Planning Commission, likely either the Planning Commission or as a part of Acme Township. If you'd like to represent all of those organizations as a delegate from this commission, you're more than welcome to. But I would like...
How long will this participation?
It won't be more than 2 hours.
Oh, no. How many? Okay, so that at this meeting on Tuesday, April,
24th.
all of the other entities will be there too?
Nope, it's a one-on-one interview with Harry Burkholder from LEA, who's coordinating the information.
Oh, okay.
And then myself, and what I'm asking is for 2 Parks and Recreation Commissioners to be involved with that. And what I'm saying is, you're going to have an opportunity for input through some of the other roles that you hold in our community. But if you'd
Anybody-
like to represent,
Love to.
take it all at once.
Anybody else?
Doesn't matter.
Anybody else like to volunteer for that?
Going once, going once.
Take
Okay,
Bob.
I'll do it.
Okay, great.
So Bill and I'll meet with you guys on Tuesday. You'll tell us where.
Tomorrow morning, I'll get with Harry about the exact time, and we'll likely meet at my office.
And it's in the morning?
Correct.
Okay.
Or Commissioner Dorn, if you'd like to meet, we could probably even meet at your office if that's easier for you.
Are they to be informed at all of the strictures that apply to Maple Bay?
They have that information.
These gentlemen, Mr. Dorn has it, and
No, LEA has this, the Land
Right.
Conservancy has that.
but when they're asking these gentlemen for their input in terms of what kind of infrastructure, are they,
I've seen the master plan, if that's what you're asking. Are we familiar with the master plan and all the restrictions on the property?
for Maple Bay, yeah?
And the different owners, I guess we
Yeah.
call them? Yeah.
Or contributors that we had, okay, good,
I'll
cool.
brush up on it. Okay, anything else on that, Jason?
No, nothing else. My next item, I received a call or an email from one of our commissioners asking a couple questions, and I wanted to touch on that during my director's report. And I'm just going to read the question. For example, this is talking in regards to the skate park. For example, does anyone monitor the video camera that was installed, and if so, how often? We have video cameras at our skate park. Those were installed through a grant from the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Association. And those cameras feed into a a monitor in my office that's directly across from my chair. So I don't actively monitor the videos on a regular basis, but when something unusual is happening in the park, usually it catches my eye. We have three cameras at the park, one at the north end, one at the east end of the park, and then we have one that is focused specifically on catching faces as they come into the skate park. Typically, we utilize those cameras in the event there's an emergency or in the event there's some problem at the skate park, because those cameras are recorded. So I do maintain that footage for about, depending on how busy the skate park is, I maintain that information for about 3 to 4 weeks, unless I'm notified that there was an issue, and then I can capture images and capture data from those cameras and store that in the event there's any type of investigation or there's any type of issues that we need to take care of. And then our facilities management crew takes care of the ground, and our facilities management crew, the skate park's not one of their highest priorities, but in the summer, we hire a crew from the TBA ISD. It's part of the work program that they have. We bring on some students that their priority is going out and picking up trash and changing the trashes out at skate park. Next portion of the question is, are kids supposed to be wearing helmets, and if so, does someone monitor compliance? I think in 2008, our Parks and Recreation Commission was faced with, it was the decision of it must have been 2007, because it was before I was the director. We were faced with the challenge of a funding challenge, and we found that we were spending a tremendous amount of money on skate park attendants, folks that monitored the park and charged a fee for people to enter the park. What we found is if we eliminated those rangers, we would save some money. But without having anyone there to monitor the park, we could not require that helmets be worn. It was suggested by MMRMA, our Risk Management Association, that we change our language to strongly recommending safety gear be worn, including helmets, wrist guards, and knee guards. And that allowed us to get away from having the skate park monitored during all hours that it was open. Instead, what we did is we changed to a park ranger system. And the park rangers monitor the entire park on a seasonal basis. They typically start, this year they're going to be starting next week, and they'll go until the snow flies, which is typically mid-November. And they monitor the entire Civic Center Park, or help out wherever there's a project or an event going on at the facility. But those park rangers, whenever possible, spend at least 20 minutes per hour specifically at the skate park, monitoring that things are happening appropriately there. And then they report directly to the police if there is an issue at the skate park, or come to me if they see a trend, a negative trend going on at the park. So it ended due to some financial issues, and we strongly encourage usage of all safety gear at the park, but unless we staff it essentially sun up to sundown, we can't require the helmets be worn. So the other question was to give an update about the revenues associated with our Parks and Recreation Fund. So on your desk, each of you will see a packet of information with a fairly lengthy cover letter from me, but what I've tried to do is break down specifically our three major revenues that come into the Parks and Recreation Fund. Pages 2 through 8, you'll see a pie chart related to the three revenues associated with our Parks and Recreation Fund for the years 2007 through 2011. And then I've also put together a line graph showing the trend for user fees, general fund appropriation, and our fund balance utilization on page 7, and another line graph for our expenditures associated with those years. And just to give kind of a general idea, we have essentially three revenues that come into our fund. And depending on the year, either our user fees or our general fund allocation are the largest of those two revenues. User fees they encompass any fee that comes into into any of our facilities. So if someone has a pool membership, that's included in user fees. If they rent the pavilion at Twin Lakes, it's a user fee. If ICE gives us money for leasing Howe Arena, that's a user fee. User fees are the charges that our department, are the fees that our department charges in order to recuperate the costs of expenditures associated with any of our facilities.
Just a real quick question. Are those broken down somewhere?
Those are broken down. Those are broken down throughout our budget. We have our budget has 13 different. Our fund has 11 different activities associated with it, and each activity is specific to a park or facility. So within our budget, we have. Our fund is called 208. It's the Parks and Recreation Fund. And within the Parks and Recreation Fund, we have Activity 751, which pertains specifically to the commission. In 752, that pertains specifically to the Civic Center. 750,
Right, okay.
et cetera.
You can see those on the budget report, the monthly budget report. That's page 4 of your package.
Thank you.
And it's got the major categories.
Correct. Yeah, those are the major categories. So our user fees are those fees are entirely dependent on the job that our department does. That's the variable. If we have a good year and we're doing well, or the business is going well in parks, you're going to see increased revenues. The next item is the general fund allocation. The general fund allocation is the amount is the funding supplied by the Board of Commissioners as part of our budget to help with the operating expenditures associated with the activities that go on within our fund. These are a little bit different, and these are variable not based on the performance of our department, not directly related to the performance of our department. These are based on the decisions associated. These are made. The decision to allocate these funds come directly from the Board of Commissioners. And these vary. The amount that the County Board of Commissioners has to distribute each year varies based on the taxable revenues, interest earnings that the county has in investments and things of that nature. And then during the budgeting process, what I do is I put together a projected budget associated with the expenditures that I can foresee coming for the next fiscal year, and then put together projected user fees, the projected revenue associated with those user fees, to make a determination of the difference between our revenues and expenditures. And essentially, I go to the Board of Commissioners and ask the Board of Commissioners to allocate monies from the general fund to make up that difference. And then the Board of Commissioners weighs that based on how they prioritize departments, what projects have been proposed by other departments, and those funds are somewhat competitive between any department, the majority of the departments within the county. So we're competing with funds there for the administrator's office, from the drain commissioner's office, from the human resources, from IT. So though that's a more competitive, and the variable with the amount allocated there lies directly with the Board of Commissioners. Commissioner
Your
Herron?
worst nightmare tonight, maybe, but under that fund, the general fund, ours was lower this year, as everyone knows. And then last month, they gave an amount to South County. And the Board of Commissioners just approved that, except for Mr. Wheelock voted no. He thought that it should come to us. My question is did anyone discuss it with you, or I personally feel that it should have been at least presented to us, so.
I don't know this, I don't know the full story behind it, and I believe I know, but I'm not confident enough
I'm
with
not
my
trying to put
knowledge
you on the
to.
spot, I just,
No,
I
that's
think
fine.
I know my answer now.
But that was a 5-year commitment made by, and I believe it was made by one county commissioner, to make a 5-year commitment to South County, an allocation of $25,000 to provide recreational opportunities to South County. This is the last year of that 5 years, and that question was never asked of me, although general fund allocation has been cut by about $50,000 for the past, almost exactly $50,000 in the past, each year for the past two. So that's kind of where we're at on those decisions. You know, of course, the general fund allocation is entirely controlled by the Board of Commissioners. So
I understand that.
depending on the decisions they want to make.
I understand that, but I personally am not going to let this drop, so I just publicly ask you if you were aware of it, and I thank you for your answer.
Sure.
Bill?
I just, anyway, I have a couple questions and a couple of observations. First of
Sure.
all, what is, from this I can't tell, what is our current Parks and Recreation Fund balance? How much money is in that fund? I mean, I see how much we took out, or how
Right.
much we really credited back in.
I believe at the beginning of the year, we had $112,000 in fund balance.
And that's at the beginning of 2012?
That's the beginning of 2012.
Okay.
We are budgeted to utilize fund balance this year, partially due to the decrease in the general fund allocation.
Okay. All
And
right, thank you. Next, just a little, for the newer members of the commission, you're not new anymore. You've been, you know, the way things turn over on this board, if you've been to 2 meetings in a row, you're an old timer. Last year, we had quite a lengthy discussion on budgeting. And we prepared, I requested that you prepare a document that was a little bit similar to some of these, and it showed expenditures versus revenues through the years. And, well, I guess with the exception of two members of this body, I think everybody else realizes that through the past 5-6 years or so, we're trending in the right direction. We're cutting down on expenditures, generally speaking, and we're increasing our revenues. You know, the blip that you see here, if you really take a look at this, it's not as steep as what this graph makes it look like. And the $716,000 was the year that we ran, the 1 year that we ran the baseball program. So the expenditures went up. Now, the corresponding revenues went up too. Unfortunately, they're not on this page, so you can't compare the two. But through time, this commission has done a pretty good job with budgeting, with controlling costs particularly, and increasing revenues.
Thank you.
That's all I got.
Thank you.
And then
Jason?
the third source of revenue is our fund balance and whether we utilize fund balance. So you'll notice that in 2007, 2009, and 2011, on those pie charts, there are 3 sources of revenue there. We utilized fund balance that year to offset the expenditures. Our expenditures in those 3 years were greater than our revenues. So we utilized the fund balance that we have set aside, which is essentially a kind of like a savings account within the Parks and Recreation Fund, that we utilize historically to shore up the difference between our expenditures and our revenues. In 2007, 2009, and 2011, we utilized fund balance. In 2008 and 2010, though, you'll notice on those pie charts there are only 2 pieces of pie. The reason for that is in those 2 years, we contributed to our fund balance. Our revenues were greater than expenditures. Revenues being our user fees and our general fund allocation. So that fund balance is kind of a unique. It's kind of unique when it comes to our department because we're one of the few county departments that has our own specific fund associated with our revenues and expenditures. When money comes to Parks and Recreation through the general fund allocation or user fees, if we don't expend all of that, or if we have greater revenues, that money stays in Parks and Recreation. That money doesn't get redistributed to the general fund, which is kind of nice, but it also helps shore up our expenditures or our revenues in the event our expenditures are greater than our revenues. So pages 2 through 7, you can see the pie charts associated with each individual year and the revenues associated with those years. But page 7 is key, the trends in Parks and Recreation revenues for 2007 to 2011. You'll see on this line chart, which is this chart, you'll see the changes in our user fees, how well we did in each year. what our general fund appropriation did in each year versus what our fund balance, how we utilized our fund balance. Please keep in mind that the fund balance in 2008, we contributed to our fund balance, so on this graph it shows negative because it's a negative of utilization. And then in 2010, we contributed as well, $14,869. The best, I guess what I'd like you to take away from this, and each of you, I hope, take away something different, but the overriding issue here is, I came aboard in 2007, and before I was hired as the deputy director, our previous director went about 10 years without a director, or without a fully staffed department. And we realized revenues of $381,000 in user fees. My second year here, for a portion of it, my second year here, in April, our our previous director left, which shortened our staff, our full-time staff, to one director again. And we saw a slight increase. As that year wore on, getting into 2009, doing both the aquatic manager position, what turned into the aquatic manager position, the director position, our revenues were lower than they were since I had started. When we brought Kim on as our aquatic manager, you can see we had a record year for our user fees. In 2010, we were fully staffed with a director and an aquatics manager. In 2011, we still had higher user fees than we have back to 2007. But in 2011, we were without our aquatic manager for 13 weeks. The point I'm trying to make is, and the reason I brought up where we're at with the pool, our finances, to some degree, live and die with the pool. That's where we have our largest revenues. That's where we have our largest expenditures. The expenditures, they pretty much stay the same. Our revenues, though, that's the key. That's the variable that really pushes our department towards financial success. And what I'm trying to say is, when we're fully staffed, we have potential to control those user fees and to bring in greater user fees. So where we're at this year, I'm more comfortable with the revenues and the projections for 2012 than I was for our 2011 bottom line, with the absence of our aquatic manager. And I hope that we can get back to full staff soon, so 2012 can be a record-breaking year for our user fees.
Thanks, Jason. Are these numbers from the audits for those?
Those are actual numbers taken directly from the audits, which is why I have through 2011 and did
we
not
can
include
look.
12.
We can look at is the county audit for 2011 online?
I don't think 11 is. Our fund is finalized. The audit has not been finalized and accepted in its entirety.
Okay.
But our portion is done. There are going to be no changes to that.
Do they usually put the audit online once it's finalized?
Once it's approved, it's online.
Okay. Any other questions on the charts there? All right, Jason, what's next?
Just to let the commissioners know, this is kind of an exciting opportunity, and I know very little about it right now. Yesterday, I was asked if Grand Traverse County would be willing to be a pilot community for a Building the Case Committee sponsored through the Michigan Recreation Park Association and the MRPA Foundation to create a standardized way to track the economic impact that Parks and Recreation has on local economies. So what MRPA is doing is they've realized this is probably a $200,000 project, and what they've done is they've taken municipalities from throughout Michigan, including Marquette, Battle Creek, Kent County, Grand Traverse County, Southeast Livingston County Recreation Authority, and a couple other ones, very geographically separated communities, but also communities with strong foundation support in their communities. What MRPA is trying to do is they've hired a contractor that's going to write grants specifically from those foundations that are located in each of those communities, and utilize that funding to create some best practices and create some case studies associated with the way each individual organization or each individual community counts the economic impact of their parks and recreation estate. There's information out there on a nationwide scale. There's some out there from a statewide scale, but nothing is universal. Nothing is apples to apples. And what MRPA is trying to do is take these pilot communities, put them all into one, essentially into the same calculator, and standardize ways for us to measure the economic impact of parks and recreation. So,
Create an index for other communities to use?
yeah, exactly. Create an index, a toolbox for other communities plugging the same information and getting some valid data. So this is key for our department because we don't have any of this data, quite frankly.
Bill?
What's the time frame for this project?
2 years.
When do they want to start?
Last month. We were the last community to be asked.
It sounds like a really good thing to do, but I would suggest that maybe we need to get some other stuff done first, particularly business plans for the three parts.
Understanding, reading through the information related to this, the hard work on my behalf is going to be farther down the road. So I'll be able to get some other things done before I put some elbow grease into this. That's part of the reason I'm comfortable with it.
It would seem to me, and obviously not knowing many details about what you've just shared, but it seemed to me that some of this fits very nicely with a number of the conversations we've had within the network in terms of marketing our value to people like the Business Association, the Realtors Association, and so on. It would seem to me that this wouldn't have to be duplicity in work, but yet maybe already work that we're talking about trying to get accomplished collaboratively through the network.
This has potential to provide benchmarking information that would greatly impact the Parks and Recreation Network. Any talk of a Parks and Recreation Authority, it would impact our department. It would has potential to impact the general fund allocation directly to our department from the Board of Commissioners. It has the opportunity to impact TCAPS, has the opportunity to impact a variety of different organizations throughout our community, and understanding where our community's at. The Chamber of Commerce just sponsored a study to be done on behalf of T-Bays associated with the economic impact that their soccer tournaments have on our community. And they're only showcasing they're showcasing two of their major soccer tournaments and then the lacrosse tournament that they host at their facility. So we're kind of riding their coattails because Keystone Soccer Complex is a county park. And T-Bays is got some major concerns about how well they're recognized for the economic impact they bring. Well, if T-Bays is questioning that, and they've gotten backup from the Chamber of Commerce, how does GTHA or ICE impact that? How does the YMCA impact that with their softball tournaments? How does the Cherry Festival impact our facility, or impact our community, We can study that, but...
the difficult choices in life are between good things. You got a bad thing and a good thing, that's an easy choice. That sounds like a really good thing, Jason, but there's a lot of other good things that we have to get done. We've got limited resources in which to do it. We've got a DNR plan that's lurking in the background, as well as those business plans, strategic plan update. I'd love to have that kind of accomplishment, but I'm questioning, whether that fits in at all to our current strategic plan, and whether it's going to be a misallocation of our resources.
Our resources are going to be limited. This is going to be done. The resources that you're going to have to expend are going to be my time.
Yeah, that's pretty much all we got.
Yeah, but you
could do that.
You told us you don't have any, though. That's the problem.
I'll find a way to manage this. This is the tie that binds.
Okay, just at my last Grand Traverse County Planning Commission, or was it? Okay, I also went to a quarterly meeting. It was the quarterly meeting, I believe, that John Syke, there's a quarterly chairs, planners meeting 4 times a year at the Elks Lodge regarding planning and what's happening throughout the county. And anyway, but also on the same day, I had the County Planning Commission. But the word out, and also there, I get the planning and zoning news, and both at these meetings and in the planning and zoning news, they indicate that placemaking is going to become a legal imperative for planning commissions and for municipalities. And so this information about what the importance of Parks and Recreation on placemaking is very important, because it's something that is being addressed statewide. And so if Jason is willing to spend his evening on this, rather than his regular time, I think it's important for us to kind of cooperate with that endeavor. And so somehow we should make time for it if he thinks it can be worked in. It's really an important element. And it's also important in terms of getting funding for our Parks and Recreation.
I don't want to suggest I could prioritize one thing over another, but I do also recognize the economic benefit to being able to put dollar signs to our Parks and Rec. I think particularly in this economic, political environment, everything is being questioned as to its value. And I think as we go forward to the commission and other organizations, I think it's great ammunition, if you will. So it's kind of like a penny wise, a pound foolish sort of thing. I think in the long run, you'd be shooting yourself in the foot if you don't do that. Maybe I'm not understanding it well enough, but it does sound like something that could really benefit the Parks and Rec in the long run. Again, I'm not saying that I'm not disagreeing with the statements that have been said relative to choices and priorities. I'm just recognizing it does sound like a valuable endeavor.
Okay. Rodetta?
I just have a question, Jason. Like we earlier discussed tonight, you have had to spend 90% of your time with pool matters since I came on board in January. Do you see an end to that? I know we've already discussed it's a legal thing and that, but do you see an end to that you have time to take this on outside of, I didn't hear you say you wanted to do it at night on your own time. I didn't hear that, so.
How I prioritize my workday is up to me as a professional, and I can find time to do that. I understand how this grant works and this process will work for MRPA, and I understand where my focus is going, when my focus is going to have to be on it. It's far enough down the road that by then I should have an answer about what's going on with our aquatic manager, which will free up a good portion of my time. And this goes hand in hand and definitely gives us ammunition associated with the Parks and Recreation Network, the case for an authority if that's the road that our community travels down, as well as justifying the case for Parks and Recreation. You know, you see on page 7 of that budget sheet what's happened to our general fund appropriation. If I can show that, sure, our parks cost $1.2 million, but the economic impact of our parks is $4 million. It shines a better light on our, not only on our department, but on our industry throughout the community. And that's key, because that's something that, shame on my industry for never taking that into consideration or never taking the time to justify it. And we're behind the 8 ball as an industry, but
Any new comments on this?
We're making progress.
Any new comments on this? Okay,
That
we
does-
don't employ Jason. You know, Jason is not the employee of the Parks and Recreation Department. He's the employee of the county and Mr. Bott, who the current county administrator. So I would, my demands, to the extent they're demands, aren't going to stop, but I would urge you to seek Mr. Bott's counsel on this, Jason, to make sure that he's good with that. What else?
That does it for my report.
Okay. Any questions further about that from the commission? If not, can we move?
I have a question.
Rodetta.
Jason, were you asking for the board support so that you can take that to Mr. Bott?
No, I was just
A
informing the board.
recommendation?
Nope, I was just informing the board that we've been asked to be, it's kind of an honor to be asked to be a part of it. So I was just informing the board of that honor and how highly our community is actually looked upon throughout the parks and recreation industry in the state.
Mr. Chair, I have a question,
Yes.
too. It's, I don't know if it's the appropriate time, but if not, if you, and I can put it in writing for next month's agenda, but I would like to see attendance addressed, meeting attendance. I don't know for sure where this is the time. And but I do have a question for Jason. Do we have a policy for attendance at these meetings?
We do not have an attendance policy for commission.
Okay, then I would like to talk to, I'll put it in
Why don't
writing for next month.
Why don't we talk about that under notices and commissioner comments, and then we can perhaps put something on the agenda
Okay.
for next meeting. Okay, can we move on to the Verizon easement at the Civic Center? You have the request in your packet. You have an easement. Was there any feedback from Mr. Cooney?
I did receive feedback from Mr. Cooney this afternoon. He suggests 3 changes to the amendment, and the 3 changes to the amendment. The first be that the Parks and Recreation Department receive $5,000, a one-time $5,000 fee for this easement, that the amendment specify that this be an underground fiber optic easement, and that upon the dissolution of the lease agreement, that the easement be returned to its original condition upon termination. After I discussed that with Mr. Cooney, I forwarded that information to Verizon. Verizon responded after I left the office today, and they said their only concern was they wanted that underground utility easement not to be specific to fiber optic, to incorporate some of the other utilities that they already have running through that easement area. I question this because I believe that the easement, the utilities running through there are not specifically for that cell tower. So I will do some investigation. I will investigate that. And at this point, I would recommend that the commission approve this lease amendment with the following stipulations: that $5,000 that the Parks and Rec Commission Department be compensated $5,000 for the easement, that the easement be specifically for underground utilities and/or fiber optic upon the research that I'm going to have to do tomorrow, and then to return the easement to its original condition upon termination of the lease agreement.
Comments? Kevin?
Mr. Chair, thanks. Is there a deadline on this lease agreement? I'm a little concerned about approving a document that's not in a final form. I agree in structure what you're saying here, but I'm not seeing where you're saying to substitute those
Let
stipulations.
me amend my recommendation then, that Parks and Recreation Commission approve the easement with those 3 changes and upon a final approval by Bob Cooney.
Strengthens it.
Well, I'm not going to vote to approve this evening. We don't have a survey. We don't know where the property is. We can't be expected to know from the 87 degrees north.
We do have a survey. I didn't include it in the packet.
Yeah, well,
Simply,
I haven't seen one. And I'm not going to approve an easement, and of course, this is a county decision, county board decision. We're just making a recommendation.
no. This is a Parks and Recreation Commission decision.
Because this is set up for the Grand Traverse County and Larry Inman's signature.
You're right.
And
So,
yep. Okay.
so Bob is saying we have the authority to give this?
Correct.
Okay. Well, his changes are good, but I also want a provision in there that says that if we have to move it, we can move it. And if we can negotiate it to be at their expense, great. But if the county's got to pay to move it, and the language is in there, I'll be a lot more comfortable, because this is going to encumber a strip of land. I don't know where exactly, but it's going to encumber a strip of land, and I don't want to do that without the flexibility of changing it at some point in the future, even if it is at some expense.
Mr. Chairman, can we get an answer to Kevin's question? Is there a deadline on this? Is there a date that, I mean, are they in a big rush?
I'll be honest with you, Verizon is in a big rush. They want to put the conduit in the ground tomorrow, but, and I'm not worried about that because I've been asking for this documentation for the past 2 months, and Verizon has not, and it's up to
All right.
them to generate this.
So then we have
They've
some
not
time.
acted. They're pressuring us, but they're not acting.
Okay, I got your point.
Appropriately.
We have some time then to nail down all of these variables and get a good document to come back to this body for approval.
Sure.
Good. Let's do it that way.
I would prefer if somebody could make a motion to refer this to next month's meeting.
I'll make that motion to refer this to next month's meeting.
And I'm in support.
Okay, moved by Rodetta and supported by Kevin to defer to the next month's meeting. Any discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so we are down to new business, Howe Arena fees.
Howe Arena, yes. In February, I was contacted by a member of the public with concerns with regards to the amount that ICE, Interested Citizens Enterprises, and Terry Marchand is here representing ICE this evening, how much ICE charges for ICE rental at Howe Arena. Mr. Bedell's concern was that ICE was charging a higher fee for rental of the arena, or rental of the ice, versus other arenas in northern Michigan. I investigated this issue to see if that claim was true, and you can see on the second page of this item that Center Ice and Howe Arena, both managed by ICE, charge comparable fees both for the prime hour rate and the off-prime that most other organizations do. And I had these are all of the arenas between Midland and St. Ignace. I really didn't have a recommendation on this. I could foresee that question being posed by this commission, so I tried to be proactive and do some of the research. Mr. Bedell's was supposed to be here to make a request of this commission, and he assured me he'd be at this meeting, but he's not here. Terry's here, and I think he would like to speak and talk a little bit about the history of Howe Arena and ICE's involvement with it essentially from its inception.
I think everybody has the background and history of ICE.
Right. That's this document that was on your desk. Terry provided these to me this evening.
I highlighted I think the important parts. And we're a 501c3, and we break even every year, and we charge what we have to charge to break even. We can't charge some of the lower amounts that some of the municipal rinks charge because they don't have to, they're not obligated to a break even. And an example of that is the 3 closest rinks to us cost the general funds of those communities in excess of $100,000 each. Grand Traverse County citizens don't pay $1 for ICE-related activities.
Which 3 are you referring to?
Kalkaska, Gaylord, and Cadillac.
Thanks, Jerry.
And unfortunately, Mr. Bedell's has questioned our Youth Hockey Association and what they charge. He's been invited to every month's executive board meetings of the GTHA and has never shown. And he was invited to last month's fee-setting meeting for GTHA, and he hasn't shown, so.
Jason, I have a question.
Sure.
About these figures. So we're at $220 for the prime hour rate.
Correct.
And as I read this, there's 12 others on your list of maybe 16 that are lower than that? Is that?
Correct.
Okay. On the other hand, the off-prime rate at $120, there's 15 that are higher than us, right?
Correct.
Okay. So I guess the argument I could see made is that the off-prime rate should be higher. And, I mean, that's just how I read this. And if any, perhaps the prime rate would be lower to some extent, but there, I mean, is anybody else seeing that? I mean, based on,
I would word it a little bit differently. It's not too expensive in Traverse City to rent ice time,
okay.
if you're willing to go to the off-prime hours.
But keep in
So
mind.
we're not starving anybody of an opportunity to skate.
And we keep that non-prime rate low for high schools to practice Traverse City Central.
And I'd just like to add in, we have a management agreement with ICE to manage Howe through 2019, and Howe solely determines the fees associated with the rink. But
Okay.
your assessment is,
Okay.
your assessment is.
I have a comment, I guess, on the process. We set Kevin and I get together once a month with Jason and we set the agenda. It's been our practice, my practice, and I've informed the commission that things to get on the agenda have got to be in writing, even from county commissioners, even from us, unless we decide at a board. Jason went through a lot of work on this. I don't know, have we ever got anything in writing from David Bedell's?
No. We swapped a couple emails with him, but they weren't specific requests.
Well, insofar as the process for agenda setting, I am not going to put anything on the agenda or let it be put on the agenda, at those meetings by myself, unless somebody's given us a written identification of what they want us to talk about. And I would urge Jason not to allocate his time. I mean, he did a nice report, it's a nice report, but he's allocated a lot of his time over something that, David has, I know David, he hasn't, even been able to show for 3 meetings, I think it's been. So, anyway, thank you for coming.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Terry.
Howe Arena day camp fees.
This item is something that in April of 2011, the Parks and Recreation Commission redrafted how the fee structure is set up for the Parks and Recreation Department. And it's a tiered system associated with Tier 1, the lowest fee being for other government entities, Tier 2 being for nonprofit organizations with 501c3 status, Tier 3, nonprofit organizations without 501c3, and Tier 4, for-profit entities. One of the things that the commission moved forward with is charging $150 to Tier 1 entities, which would include the City of Traverse City, for rental of Howe Arena. One of the things that I brought up at that point, and today's the day I guess I have to make that request, is that in the instance of the city-county day camp that's managed by the City of Traverse City, that fee be reduced to $30 per day. $30 per day covers the fees or covers the costs associated with having that facility open. When city-county day camp is in the facility, it requires no cleaning, no extra maintenance on our behalf. It's simply a utility issue. City-county day camp, the reason I'm supportive of this is we have a strong relationship with the city, and in the event we have the opportunity to rent the arena out for a greater fee, if it's a reasonable amount of time, the city will always accommodate. This is an opportunity for us to continue hosting a long-term event, a long-term program that goes on at our facility, and essentially what I'm asking is for that fee to be reduced to $30 per day. $30 per day is still a revenue that we otherwise wouldn't see on that property or at that facility. So my recommendation is that the commission change that fee to $30 per day for rental of Howe Arena to the city-county day camp for the summer of 2012.
Can I make a motion?
Just a quick
I'd like-
question first.
Excuse me.
City/county day camp. Is that its name, its official name?
That's its official, unofficial name.
Do we have a role in it, other than providing the facility?
No. Other than providing the
think we
facility.
did.
Historically, this was called the City-County Day Camp because it was originally set up between the City Parks and Recreation Department and the County Parks and Rec Department in an effort to provide daycare, essentially, for employees of the county and the city. Over time, the number of kids, the number of youngsters within city and county employees went down, and they had to open that up to the public.
All right.
Now it's a public.
Okay, that answers my question. Go ahead, Bob.
Bob, got a motion?
I made the motion, the requested motion. Do you want me to?
No.
Okay.
No? Do we have support for that motion?
support it.
Okay, support by Scott. Further discussion? And you say that they're flexible, so if we have an opportunity to generate revenue that they can adjust their location?
Correct,
Okay. So essentially, it's when it's not otherwise being rented out?
correct.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Final item is the schedule for Board of Commissioners Resource Management Administration Committee meetings. At our last OCA meeting, the 5 commissioners that were there suggested that each month that a Parks and Recreation Commission member attends the Resource Management and Administration Committee meeting. The RMNA meetings are held on the second Wednesday of the month here in this room, 7 o'clock, and it was requested of me to put together a sign-up sheet to pass around for commissioners to sign up for the month that they would like to attend and represent the Parks and Recreation Commission. So,
Yeah, this is a voluntary thing. I mean, if some of you can make it, that's great, and we can do it. If you can't, that's understandable. But this came up about because in discussions at the meeting, comparing ourselves to the Commission on Aging, we felt that, I felt that the communication between the county officials and the Commission on Aging officials was better than the communication between the Parks Commission officials and the county board officials. And in exploring different ways that the Commission on Aging did it, they attend all of, which committee is it, Rodetta?
The health.
Ways and Means?
Health Services.
Health Services? And Rodetta and Christine felt that was an important line of communication that they had opened up, so we'd like to follow their example. I'll take June 6th.
You're going to pass it around, or we're going to just shout them out?
whichever way is best.
I'll take September.
I'll take July.
Any takers for May 9?
Nobody wants to go first. I think the chairman has to go first.
I've got, I got a meeting someplace May 9th.
Oh, yeah.
No, I do really. Okay.
Wednesday evenings are not good for me at all.
Aren't they?
No.
Okay. All right.
And I don't
so-
have my calendar that far into the future.
All right, Dave, well, if you could get, we've got a couple of these to start out with. If you could get to Jason or Janine and let them know if you could do any of these, it would be
We'll
appreciated.
send out an invitation with those dates outlined. We'll engrave it for you.
Okay.
What a good idea.
Second public comment. Ross,
Uh-oh.
were you watching TV or?
Disadvantage of being too close. Ross Richardson, 873 Washington Street, Grand Traverse County Commissioner. First of all, if I could address, Rodetta, your comment about Civic Center South and the $25,000. I also did not vote for that appropriation.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's fine.
I was trying to figure out why you did, so thank you.
No,
I was thinking it
Well-
was only Mr. Wheelock.
in the time, I mean, I don't think we've ever had unanimous vote on this in the time that I've been on the board, and this year, it actually made me angry that the same individuals on the county board who, you know, are unwilling to appropriate money to County Parks and Rec to run our county parks, were happily voting money to Civic Center South, which is not a county park, to help support that. And I have nothing against Civic Center South. I think it's great what they're doing down there, and if, you know, we had excess money to help them, that's fine, but not the same year that we're cutting Parks and Rec budget substantially should we then turn around and give money to Civic Center South and tell them how wonderful they are. I mean, ironically, the biggest park in the south part of the county is owned by the city, in the Brownbridge Quiet area. You were also talking about the budget tonight. I do have some fund balance numbers. Parks and Rec fund ended 2011 with, let me see here, $140,000, which means you actually spent $46,000 of the fund balance during 2011. What you have to understand is that the Parks and Recreation Fund, and there are a lot of funds like this within county government. County Facilities has a fund, Capital Improvements has a fund, there's a foreclosure fund, there's a resource recovery fund. These funds do not have any legal status separate from the general fund. Jason, you are correct in saying that it's basically excess money that's been appropriated to Parks and Rec that wasn't spent, but, you know, we could and probably should take it back every year. The only reason the fund exists is as a convenience in the accounting for the finance department. It's easier to just create the fund, drop the money into it, and then have all the expenditures and revenues coming in and out of that fund. It could just as easily be done within the general fund as a whole. The money Parks and Rec gets every year is what we budget every year. And then everything else is basically a crapshoot. So, again, I'm not saying I'm trying to take your money away. I'm just saying that. It isn't like you have it's not like you have a savings account there. There's money there, but if we are cutting your budget, it's easier for us to let you spend that money down. But, you know, theoretically, you know, there shouldn't be anything there. There's your budget. You get to spend it. You can't spend any more than what you're budgeted without our approval. You obviously can spend less. Part of the problem is when we talk about general fund balance for the county as a whole, there is this rather narrow number that is the general fund balance, which at the end of last year stood at $7.8 million. But just in the 6 funds I sort of rattled off now, there's another $2.5 million, which essentially is just general fund money. What I'm trying to say is that the county is actually in better shape than what some people would, you know, have it appear, okay? So we all use this number like, oh, our general fund balance has to be like 18% of our overall budget. Actually, it's much higher than that because of all these little carve-out funds. I only mentioned some of the bigger ones. There's a whole bunch of little ones, too. All little pockets of money that sort of exist on their own. Yes?
The 18%, the number that is that an accountant's
We have
idea as to what a
We have
fund
an actual county policy that says our general fund should be between, you know, targeted no lower than 18 to 20% of our annual budget.
Okay.
Our annual budget has actually shrunk a little. It's around 37 or 38
Russ,
million.
what was the 2011 end number on the fund balance?
On what is just called the general fund, it was 7.8 million.
But what about the Parks and Rec?
Parks and Rec was 140,226. But county facilities, which actually spends some money on Parks and Rec because they pay your utility bills at the Civic Center, had 392,000 in it. Capital Improvements, which is another place we like to park money, had 830,000 in it. So there's a lot of, you know, other little pockets of money. Hang on, I'm not trying to correct you, I'm just trying to give you a better idea of what the budget process is.
What do you think the county board would do if we came and we said, well, we wanted to use $50,000 of the Parks and Rec fund balance to build a sign, a community information sign at the Civic Center on Front Street?
They would find it less painful than asking for $50,000 in a budget appropriation, even though really there is no difference.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, in fact, Jason can tell you that when, at the very end of the budget process, just before the budget was submitted to the county board, suddenly Dennis Aloy and Dean Bott asked for another $50,000 from Parks and Rec. And he was struggling to find it. I said, just spend it out of fund balance and don't even look, you know, don't even worry about it. Just, okay, we'll just take out a fund balance and go on.
And that was the $46,000.
Well, no, because we were talking about this year, actually.
Oh, that's right, okay.
The $46,000 that you spent last year.
Last year.
I honestly can't attribute it. But even revenue you take in has no special status. I mean, it's not like, gee, you know, we got all this money for, you know, pool fees or rental fees or, you know, swim lessons. That's just general fund money.
Okay.
I mean, it's different from like the Commission on Aging. Commission on Aging has a dedicated millage that can only be spent for one thing. Parks and Rec is not like that as it stands right now.
So would the synopsis be that we should spend it if we have it? Because if we don't, it's going to be looked at as maybe we
No,
didn't need it?
I mean, this is just a suggestion from me, and it's just me talking. First of all, I'm obviously a supporter of Parks and Rec, and, you know, first of all, I don't believe you need to make money, unlike some of my fellow commissioners. And secondly, I do think that citizens here really, really value their parks. And let's face it, we have great park system up here at all levels of government, from, you know, federal parks right on down to, you know, township and so forth. And people love their parks. It's one of the best things about living up here. And Jason's right, they are great quality of life things that, you know, that enhance everything about life in Grand Traverse County. But yeah, if you have a special project, I would say, you know, sort of keep your regular budget for operations and then say, well, we have the special idea and we could maybe use some of that fund balance for that. The fund balance did, I think, get too big. It was up around $400,000 just a couple of years ago, so, you know, and that's just really sloppy budgeting more than anything else.
Well, I really appreciate you coming, and I stand corrected, and thank you for supporting the Parks and Rec Board. I was somewhat surprised at how that went.
Well, Commissioner
done.
Commissioner Wheelock, to his credit, has always said that if we're going to spend money on parks, it should be spent through this board, you know, and I certainly agree with him on that, you know. But that coupled with the, you know, the chopping away at the budget, you know, and by the way, I think some of the people who voted for it this time had never voted for it before, so. Anyway.
Well, thanks for taking time out. And
Okay, any other questions or anything for me, or?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
I do feel badly, I guess is the word, that we don't have more southern county parks. And Ross is right, there's a huge, lovely Brown Bridge quiet area, but I think one of the things I would hope to see happen is the extension of the trail system to Mayfield, to Kingsley, you know, so that we could connect all of those great parks along the Boardman River to the southern part of the county as well as to the north. Jason?
I agree with that comment, and just as a suggestion, it is well within the scope of the Parks and Recreation Commission to identify finding new parkland in the southern portion of the county if the commission desires through its strategic plan.
Sure.
And this story was told me by Russ Clark not that long ago, but a number of years ago, there was some gentleman who owned a large piece of land in the southern part of the county. I think it was in Mayfield Township, 80 acres that he wanted to donate to the county for a park. But my understanding is it neighbored land owned by perhaps a county commissioner who was not crazy about a big public park next to, you know, his or her land, and so it did not happen.
Wow. Okay, any other business? So commissioner comments. I'll go over to am I following the agenda correctly?
Correct. Yes.
Go over to commissioner comments, and Rodetta, you wanted to raise an issue regarding tracking attendance?
I definitely do, for the reason that since I came on board, I've only seen one member of this board one time. I think there needs to be a policy in place. I believe other departments have it. I mean, if they're not going to come, put somebody else in the seat. Bottom line.
I support that, that for discussion for our next meeting, if you want to put it on the agenda.
I didn't take time to
Potential-
really word that properly, but I...
Potential attendance policy for the commission?
Just to clarify to the commission, the best way for that to happen would be to change the bylaws, and in order for us to change our bylaws, we'd have to introduce something at a meeting. It'd have to be reread at the next the next regular meeting of the commission. So that's something
Right.
that's very feasible, but it will take 2 meetings.
People should be honored to be elected to, or, appointed to a board, and just to show up when you feel like it, once or twice a year, I don't think they need to be on it.
Well, let's put it on the next agenda, and we can, if something evolves out of that meeting, we can make the introduction for a bylaw change at that time.
Right.
Okay?
Thank you.
Tigers are on in 20 minutes? Okay, we're adjourned.
You're as bad as my grandmother.